I never thought a stranger's silence could haunt me more than their words. But here I am, 3 years later, still thinking about the woman I dismissed in 30 seconds flat. The woman who saw everything I couldn't see about myself. The woman who changed my life while I was too blind to notice. The woman whose name I'll never know, but whose face I see every single day when I close my eyes. If you're new here, please subscribe. This channel is just starting, and every day we're bringing you new stories that remind us what it means to be human. Stories like this one. Stories that refuse to let go. Stories that make us question everything we thought we knew about kindness, about value, about what it means to truly see another person. I was 28, and convinced I had the world figured out. That's the dangerous age, isn't it? Old enough to feel experienced, young enough to still be spectacularly wrong about almost everything. I worked in marketing for a tech startup in Seattle, lived in an expensive apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, and measured my worth in LinkedIn connections and quarterly bonuses. My life was a curated feed of success indicators, and I was damn proud of it. Every morning followed the same pattern. Alarm at 6:15, workout at 6:30, shower, blow dry, makeup applied with the precision of someone who'd watched too many YouTube tutorials, outfit selected the night before, hanging on the back of my closet door like a uniform. Coffee from the machine I'd spent $400 on because regular coffee wasn't good enough anymore. Everything optimized, everything efficient, everything designed to project the image of someone who had their life together. My apartment reflected the same careful curation. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and white. Abstract art I'd bought because the designer said it was investment worthy. Plants I paid someone to maintain because I traveled too much to keep them alive myself. It was beautiful in the way magazine spreads are beautiful. Perfect and cold and utterly devoid of any real warmth. I told myself I was happy. I had the career trajectory I'd mapped out in college. The salary that let me buy whatever I wanted without checking price tags. The Instagram feed that made old classmates leave jealous comments. What more could I want? That Tuesday started like any other. Rain tapping against my Uber window. Emails piling up before 9 a.m. The bitter taste of overpriced coffee burning my tongue. I was running late for a presentation that could make or break my promotion. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from my team, my boss, my mother asking when I'd visit. She'd been asking for 3 months and I kept saying soon, which we both knew meant never. I swiped them all away. Later. Always later. There was always something more urgent than the people who actually loved me. The presentation was for a major client, a pharmaceutical company looking to rebrand their diabetes medication. Millions of dollars on the line. My boss had made it clear this was my chance to prove I deserved the senior position opening up next quarter. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing, rehearsing every slide, anticipating every question. My entire future felt balanced on the next 90 minutes. The Uber dropped me 2 blocks from the office because of construction. Perfect. Just perfect. I grabbed my laptop bag and started speed walking, heels clicking against wet pavement like tiny hammers. The sound echoed off the buildings, sharp and aggressive. I was mentally running through my opening slide, barely seeing the world around me. Just another body moving through space, focused entirely on the destination, and not the journey. That's when I saw her. She was sitting on the sidewalk near the entrance to my building, back against the brick wall, a cardboard sign resting on her knees. Mid-50s, maybe older. It's hard to tell when life has been unkind. Gray hair pulled back in a messy bun, strands escaping around her face. Jacket too thin for the weather, the kind you'd find at a thrift store or donation bin. Jeans with a tear at the knee that wasn't the fashionable kind. Shoes that had seen too many miles. But it was her eyes that I remember now, though I barely looked at them then. They were watching people pass with this strange, careful attention. Not desperate or pleading, just watching, studying. Like she was reading something written on our faces that we didn't know was there. I had my excuse ready before she even opened her mouth. The excuse I'd perfected over years of walking past people like her. The excuse that let me feel okay about not stopping, not helping, not even acknowledging their humanity. I don't carry cash, I said, not slowing down. The words came out automatic, smooth, practiced. I'd said them 1,000 times, 10,000 times. So many times they'd stopped meaning anything at all. Just sounds to fill the space between seeing someone in need and walking away from them. That's okay, she said quietly. Her voice was softer than I expected, gentler. I just wanted to say, be careful today. The world needs you whole. I stopped, not because the words moved me, but because they irritated me. Be careful? What did that even mean? Some weird manipulation tactic I hadn't encountered before? A new strategy to make me feel guilty enough to pull out my phone and Venmo her something? I'd heard every approach. The aggressive ones, the heartbreaking ones, the ones with elaborate stories about sick children or stolen wallets. This was just another angle. I turned back, ready to say something sharp, something that would make her understand I saw through whatever game this was, something that would reestablish the boundary between us. Me in my expensive coat with my important meeting, her on the cold ground with her cardboard sign, something that would remind both of us which of us mattered in the world's economy. But she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was adjusting her sign, and I caught a glimpse of the words, "Anything helps. God bless." Her hands were clean but rough, knuckles red from the cold. There was a small backpack next to her, everything she owned probably stuffed inside. A paper coffee cup with maybe an inch of liquid left, steam no longer rising from it. "Right," I muttered, and walked away. The whole interaction took maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds that I resented giving up when I was already running late. 30 seconds that felt like an interruption to the important flow of my important day. I forgot about it before I reached the elevator. The presentation went well. I thought it went well. I nailed the slides, answered the tough questions, made the clients laugh in the right places. My boss gave me that tight smile that meant approval without commitment. The pharmaceutical executives nodded and took notes, and said things like, "Interesting approach," and "We'll be in touch." All the corporate code for maybe. I spent the rest of the day in back-to-back meetings, drowning in that peculiar exhaustion that comes from performing competence for 8 straight hours. Zoom calls where I had to remember to look engaged. Strategy sessions where I had to pretend I cared about market penetration rates. Lunch at my desk, eating a $12 salad while typing with my other hand, barely tasting the food. By 4 p.m., I was responding to emails on autopilot, my brain turning to mush. My assistant reminded me about the networking event that evening, some industry mixer I'd committed to weeks ago. I thought about canceling, but the right people would be there, the people who could help me climb higher, reach further, become more successful. So I'd go, and I'd smile, and I'd exchange business cards with people whose names I'd forget by morning. By 6 p.m., I was fried, completely depleted. I decided to walk to the gym instead of taking my usual Uber, thinking the air might clear my head, might prepare me for another few hours of performative socializing. The rain had stopped, leaving everything slick and reflective. The city lights bounced off wet pavement, creating a kind of beauty I was too tired to appreciate. That's when I noticed the police cars. 3 of them, lights spinning blue and red, clustered right where I'd entered the building that morning. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, that peculiar mix of concerned and curious that accidents always draw. A officer was putting up yellow caution tape, methodically sectioning off the area. Another was taking photos of something on the ground. The street was blocked, traffic backing up, horns starting to honk. I slowed down, curiosity pulling me closer despite my better judgment, despite knowing I should just keep walking, get to the gym, stick to my routine. An officer was putting up yellow caution tape around a pile of twisted metal that I gradually recognized as scaffolding, pieces of it scattered across the sidewalk like giant metal bones. What happened? I asked a guy in a delivery uniform standing at the edge of the crowd. He had pizza bags slung over his shoulder. His evening probably disrupted just like mine. "Scaffolding collapsed," he said, pointing up. I followed his finger to the building facade, where construction equipment still clung to the upper floors. A whole section was missing, gaps where metal beams should have been. Right around 9 this morning, someone walking by got hit pretty bad. Ambulance took them away 20 minutes ago. Been here all day cleaning it up. My throat went dry. 9 a.m. That was exactly when I'd been walking here. Exactly when I would have been directly under that scaffolding if I hadn't stopped. If a homeless woman hadn't said something strange enough to make me pause for 30 seconds. 30 seconds that suddenly felt like the difference between life and death. Did they... I couldn't finish the question. My voice came out as a whisper. "Don't know," the delivery guy said, shaking his head. Looked pretty serious, though. They brought out the heavy equipment and everything. Saw them loading someone into the ambulance, but they had one of those privacy screens up. Never a good sign. I stood there as the crowd dispersed. People returning to their lives, their routines, their plans. Stood there staring at the crumpled metal on the ground, at the dent it had made in the concrete. Massive, heavy, the kind of impact that doesn't leave room for survival. My hands started shaking, not from cold, from the sudden terrible understanding that I'd come within seconds, literal seconds, of being under that, of being the person in the ambulance, the person whose laptop bag would have been crushed into the pavement along with everything else, the person whose carefully curated life would have ended in a random Tuesday morning accident that no one could have predicted or prevented, except someone had predicted it, or at least, someone had known enough to warn me. The homeless woman's words echoed back, suddenly taking on weight they hadn't had before. Be careful today. The world needs you whole. How did she know? How could she possibly have known? I looked around frantically, stupidly, as if she might still be there, as if I could run back and ask her. But the sidewalk where she'd been sitting was empty now, just concrete and shadows, and the ghost of a conversation I'd barely paid attention to. My hands were really shaking now. I shoved them in my pockets, suddenly cold despite my expensive coat. People were walking past me like nothing had happened, like the world hadn't just revealed how fragile everything was, how close we all are, every single day, to catastrophe, how the universe balances on tiny moments and small decisions, and the kindness of strangers were too busy to notice. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go to the networking event. I went home, climbed into bed with my clothes still on, and stared at the ceiling until the city lights dimmed and the room went dark. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that scaffolding. Heard the crash I hadn't actually heard, but that played in my mind with perfect clarity. Felt the impact that never came but could have, should have, would have, if not for 30 seconds and 7 words from a woman whose name I didn't know. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and made tea, standing at my expensive windows and looking at the city lights bleeding into the darkness. Seattle spread out below me like a blanket of electricity. Thousands of windows glowing with other people's lives. Other people who'd made it through Tuesday. Other people who had no idea how close they'd come to disaster, or how a stranger's warning had saved them. Had she seen something? Been there when workers were setting up? Noticed something unstable? That had to be it. Simple explanation. Logical. She'd seen the scaffolding, recognized the danger, spent her morning warning people. That made sense. That fit into the world as I understood it. But then why phrase it that way? The world needs you whole, not watch out for the scaffolding, or construction looks dangerous, or be careful of falling debris. She'd spoken like she knew, like she'd seen my specific future and stepped into it, like she understood something about the universe that the rest of us didn't. I made a list that night, sitting at my kitchen counter with my tea going cold, trying to process what had happened, trying to make sense of the senseless. Possible explanations. 1. She saw the unstable scaffolding and warned everyone passing by. 2. She had some kind of premonition or psychic ability. 3. Pure coincidence. She warns everyone, and I happen to be in danger. 4. I'm overthinking this because I'm in shock, but none of them felt right. None of them explained the specificity of her words. The world needs you whole, not be safe or watch out. Whole. Like she knew I was walking around broken, fragmented, scattered across 1,000 obligations and ambitions. Like she could see that I was anything but whole, even though from the outside I looked like I had everything together. I went back the next morning. Same spot, same time. The scaffolding debris was gone, cleaned up like it had never been there, but she wasn't there either. The sidewalk was empty except for a coffee cup someone had left behind and a dark stain that might have been old rain or might have been something else. I checked the next day too, and the next. For 2 weeks straight, I looked for her during my commute, during lunch breaks on my way home. I walked blocks out of my way, checking other corners, other buildings. Asked the security guard in my office if he'd seen her. He shrugged. They move around, he said. Here one day, gone the next. That's how it is. But I couldn't accept that. Couldn't accept that someone could save your life and then just disappear like smoke, like they'd never existed at all. Why do you care so much? My roommate asked when I mentioned it for the 5th or 6th time. Jessica and I had lived together for 2 years, and she knew me as someone who didn't get obsessed with things like this, who kept her life organized, compartmentalized, under control. You're okay. That's what matters, right? But it wasn't what mattered. Or at least it wasn't the only thing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I owed her something. An explanation. A thank you. Money, obviously. God, I should have given her money that morning. Whatever I had. Emptied my wallet. Emptied my bank account. But more than that. Recognition. Acknowledgement. Proof that her 30 seconds had mattered. Had meant something. Had changed everything. I dismissed her so quickly. So completely. Hadn't even really looked at her face. Just processed her as homeless woman. Ignore. Move on. An obstacle between me and my important meeting. An inconvenience in my carefully scheduled day. And she'd saved my life without expecting anything in return. Without even knowing if I'd listen. Without any guarantee that her warning would matter at all. The guilt started small and grew. Every time I bought my $12 salad, I thought about her thin jacket. Every time I complained about work, the clients being difficult, the boss being demanding, the projects being boring, I remembered her cardboard sign. Every time I walked past someone asking for help and said, "Sorry, no cash," I heard my own voice from that Tuesday morning. Automatic, smooth, inhuman, the voice of someone who'd learned how to see people as invisible. If you've made it this far, please subscribe to our channel and leave a like. It's incredibly important for our channel. It shows YouTube that this content matters to you, and it helps us keep sharing stories that make us think, make us feel, make us better. Stories about the moments that change us, even when we don't realize they're happening. 3 months passed. The scaffolding incident faded from the news cycle. The person who'd been hit survived, I eventually learned, but with serious injuries. I thought about visiting them in the hospital, but what would I say? I was supposed to be you. That felt obscene somehow, like survivor's guilt packaged as compassion. I got the promotion. Bigger salary, better title, corner office with even more impressive windows. My boss announced it at the team meeting, and everyone clapped, and I smiled and said thank you and felt absolutely nothing. The raise was substantial. Another $20,000 a year. Money that would have thrilled me 6 months ago. Now it just felt like proof of how broken the world was. How someone could make 6 figures pushing pharmaceutical branding, while another person froze on sidewalks trying to warn strangers about danger. My mother called to congratulate me when I finally told her. "I'm so proud of you, honey," she said, and I could hear her smiling through the phone. "You've worked so hard for this." Had I? Worked hard? Or had I just been busy? Had I accomplished anything that actually mattered? Had I made anyone's life better? Had I seen anyone, really seen them, the way that woman had seen me? "Thanks, Mom," I said, because what else could I say? That I was having an existential crisis because a homeless woman had saved my life and I couldn't find her to say thank you? That success felt meaningless when I couldn't even do basic human kindness? I started volunteering at a shelter on Saturday mornings. Told myself it was about giving back, about using my privilege for good, about becoming a better person. Really? I was looking for her, scanning every face, hoping to find those careful, watching eyes, hoping to stumble across her in the food line or the clothing donation room or the space where people could come in from the cold and just exist for a few hours. The shelter was called Mary's Place, tucked into a converted office building in South Seattle. The first morning I showed up, nervous and overdressed in my yoga pants and expensive sneakers, a volunteer coordinator named Patricia took me under her wing. "First time?" she asked, and I nodded. She smiled, kind and knowing. "It's okay to feel awkward. Everyone does at first. Just remember, we're here to serve, not to save. These folks don't need pity. They need dignity." Patricia was 60-something with silver hair and laugh lines like rivers carved into her face. She'd been volunteering for 15 years, she told me, ever since her own daughter had struggled with addiction and homelessness. "She's okay now," Patricia said. "Been clean for 7 years, has her own place, works at a bakery. But those years when she was out there," she shook her head, "they changed how I see everything. She taught me how to serve food without pity, how to listen without fixing, how to see people instead of problems, how to ask someone's name and actually remember it. How to look people in the eyes instead of at the ground or past their shoulder. How to recognize that every person in that shelter had a story, had a life, had dreams and losses and moments of beauty that had nothing to do with their current circumstances. But she couldn't help me find the woman from that Tuesday. "Honey, a lot of folks move around," Patricia said gently when I described her for the third or fourth time. "Especially if they're not connected to services, if they're not sleeping in shelters. Could be anywhere by now. Different neighborhood, different city, different state. Some people prefer to keep moving. Staying still feels too vulnerable." I knew she was right. Logically, I knew, but I kept looking anyway. It became a habit, then a compulsion, then something like an obsession. Every person on every corner got a real look from me now. Not a glance. A look. Eye contact. Recognition. The bare minimum of human acknowledgement that I'd denied people for 28 years. I started carrying supplies in my bag. Granola bars, bottles of water, those hand warmer packets you can buy in bulk. Socks. Patricia had told me socks were always needed. That feet were the first thing to suffer when you're living outside. First aid supplies. Menstrual products. Small things. Probably stupid things. Band-aids and granola bars wouldn't solve homelessness. Wouldn't address the systemic failures that put people on the streets in the first place. But I couldn't walk past anymore. Couldn't pretend not to see. "You've gone soft," one of my coworkers joked at lunch one day. We were at some trendy place downtown. $20 salads and craft cocktails. And I'd suggested we box up our leftovers to give to someone on the way back to the office. My coworker, Tyler, ambitious and ruthless, and everything I used to admire, laughed like I'd made a joke. "What happened to the Ice Queen? Did someone break up with you or something?" I laughed it off, made some comment about wanting to be more charitable, changed the subject to work, but the word stuck. Ice Queen. Had I been cold before? I thought I'd been professional, focused, successful, driven. Now those words felt like euphemisms for something uglier, for turning off the part of yourself that connects to other people, for seeing humans as obstacles or opportunities, but never as humans, for measuring worth in productivity and profit, and completely forgetting that people have value just by existing. 6 months after the scaffolding, I was grabbing coffee before work when I saw a familiar gray bun through the window. My heart jumped so hard I felt it in my throat. I left my order on the counter, the $8 latte I'd been waiting 5 minutes for, and ran outside, not caring how it looked, not caring that people were staring, not caring about anything except the possibility that I'd finally found her. But it wasn't her. Just another woman, another thin jacket, another cardboard sign. Different eyes, though. These were harder, more distant. Walls built so high that my eager, desperate energy bounced right off them. "Sorry," I said, catching my breath. I must have looked insane, running out of a coffee shop toward a homeless woman like we were long-lost friends. "I thought you were someone else." "Story of my life," she said without smiling. There was an edge to her voice, something sharp and protective. "Everyone thinks I'm someone else. No one sees who I actually am." The words hit me like a slap. She was right. I wasn't seeing her. I was seeing the ghost of someone else, projecting my need and guilt onto her face, using her as a prop in my personal redemption narrative. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'm sorry. That was disrespectful." I pulled out my wallet, gave her $40, all the cash I had. "For you. Not for whoever I thought you were. For you." She took it, suspicion slowly shifting to surprise. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was softer now. Thank you." I walked back inside feeling like a fool. The barista had set my latte aside, watching me with curious eyes. The milk had probably already separated. The foam collapsed. Ruined. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Just thought I saw a friend." The truth was bigger and stranger than that. I was hunting for a ghost. For 30 seconds of conversation that had rewired my entire existence. For proof that small moments matter, that invisible people see us, that kindness exists in the gaps between our careful plans and curated lives. For evidence that I hadn't imagined the whole thing, that it had really happened, that a woman had saved my life, and then vanished like she'd never existed at all. Work kept happening. Meetings, deadlines, performance reviews. I did well enough. Hit my targets, impressed the clients, made the company money. But my heart wasn't in it the same way. I'd catch myself in meetings wondering what the point was. We were selling diabetes medication to people who probably couldn't afford it, packaging it in pretty branding, so insurance companies would pay attention. Was that worth 60 hours a week? Worth missing my mother's calls? Worth walking past suffering to get to an office where I'd create PowerPoint presentations about market penetration. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The cleaning staff who came through our office at night, invisible to everyone. Maria and Jose and Kim, who emptied our trash and vacuumed our floors and scrubbed our toilets while we were home binge-watching Netflix. The delivery people we ordered from constantly without ever learning their names. The security guards, the baristas, the whole infrastructure of humans keeping our building, our meals, our comfort running while we focused on profit margins and market share. I started saying good morning to them, learning names, asking questions. Maria had 3 kids and was studying for her GED. Jose sent money back to family in El Salvador every month. Kim was saving up to open a bakery. They had lives, dreams, stories that had nothing to do with serving people like me. "You've changed," my mother said when I finally visited for Thanksgiving. It had been almost a year since I'd made the trip home to Portland. Almost a year of soon and next month. And work is just so crazy right now. We were doing dishes, her hands in soapy water, mine drying with the faded kitchen towel I remembered from childhood. "How?" I asked. She thought for a moment, studying my face. "You're softer, but stronger too. Does that make sense?" It did. Perfectly. I'd spent 28 years building armor, telling myself it made me strong. Turns out it just made me hard, impenetrable, unable to feel things that mattered. The softness was the hard part. Letting myself feel, letting myself see, letting the world break my heart over and over with all its beauty and cruelty. "I almost died," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I hadn't told her. Hadn't told anyone except my roommate, really. It felt too big, too strange. How do you explain that a homeless woman saved your life with 7 words? My mother's hand stopped moving in the sink. "What?" So I told her. The whole story. The scaffolding. The woman. The months of searching. She listened without interrupting, tears sliding down her face by the end. "Oh, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like dish soap and the perfume she'd worn my whole life. "Oh, my sweet girl. I can't find her, Mom," I said into her shoulder. "I've looked everywhere. I need to thank her. I need her to know it mattered." "Maybe she does know," my mother said quietly. "Maybe that's why she said it. Not for thanks, but because it was the right thing to do. That winter was brutal. Seattle winter isn't about snow. It's about rain and darkness and cold that seeps into your bones and stays there. The kind of wet cold that no amount of expensive coats can keep out. I thought about her constantly, about how she'd survived that Tuesday and every day after it, about what it meant to have nothing. No apartment to retreat to, no hot shower, no warm bed, except the ability to save someone who had everything and still couldn't see what mattered. I increased my volunteering to 3 mornings a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Patricia was pleased but concerned. "Don't burn yourself out," she warned. "This work takes a toll. You have to save some energy for yourself." But I didn't want to save energy for myself. Saving energy for myself had gotten me 28 years of emptiness packaged as success. I wanted to spend it, burn it up, use it for something that mattered. I was walking home from the shelter one Saturday in February, cold rain driving sideways, when I saw the funeral notice. It was posted outside a church I passed regularly, but never entered. One of those old stone buildings that felt like they'd been there forever, anchoring the neighborhood through decades of change. The notice was simple, printed on white paper, and protected in a plastic sleeve. Memorial Service Jane Doe. Approximate age. 55 died, February 14th, 2025. Jane Doe was found deceased in an underpass on Pike Street. She was a child of God, and though we do not know her name, we honor her life and mourn her passing. If anyone has information about her identity or her family, please contact the church office. My legs stopped working. I stood there in the rain, reading and rereading those words. Jane Doe. No name. No one who knew her well enough to claim her body, to call her by the name her mother had given her. Died alone in an underpass, while people like me walked past on our way to important meetings. Died on Valentine's Day, of all days. Died and became a bureaucratic label, instead of a person. It might not be her. Probably wasn't her. The city had dozens of unhoused women her age. Hundreds, maybe. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Couldn't ignore the possibility. Couldn't accept that I might have been searching for her all these months while she was already gone. I went to the service. It was the next day, Sunday afternoon. 15 people showed up, which felt both too many and not enough. Most were shelter workers or outreach staff who'd encountered her in their work. Patricia was there, which made me feel less alone. There was a librarian who introduced herself as Margaret, a man who identified himself as a street outreach worker. A few people I didn't recognize, there for reasons they kept to themselves. The church was small and old, wooden pews worn smooth by generations of bodies. Light filtered through stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across the floor. It should have been beautiful. It just felt sad. Margaret the librarian spoke first. I didn't know her name, she said, standing at the front with her hands clasped. But she came to the library almost every Tuesday for the past 2 years. Always on Tuesdays. She'd sit in the poetry section and read Emily Dickinson. She had the poems memorized. I'd see her lips moving, reciting them silently. Sometimes she'd read to me. She had a beautiful voice. I started crying. Not polite tears. Ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that I couldn't control. Tuesday. She'd been at the library on Tuesdays, which meant the Tuesday she saved me, she'd probably been on her way to the library, had probably stopped to rest near my building, had probably been planning to spend the cold day with Emily Dickinson's words, had seen me rushing past, and decided to interrupt her routine to warn a stranger. The street outreach worker spoke next. His name was David, and he'd been doing this work for 20 years. She was one of the hardest people to help, he said, but his voice was warm. Didn't want to go to shelters. Said they were too crowded, too loud. She preferred to sleep outside, even in winter. But she wasn't isolated. She knew everyone on the street, looked out for people. I saw her give away her food more than once, give away her blanket. She had this way of seeing trouble before it happened and warning people. My crying got harder. That was her. It had to be. The woman who saw trouble before it happened, who warned people, who'd given away everything, including 30 seconds that saved my life. The pastor talked about God's love for the forgotten, about how every person matters, seen or unseen, about how we're all children of God, deserving of dignity in life and death. His words were kind and well-meaning, and did nothing to ease the crushing weight in my chest. After the service, I approached him. My face was blotchy and my eyes were swollen, and I probably looked insane. Did anyone know her real name? I asked. No, he said gently, but we're still asking around. Sometimes people come forward after the service. Sometimes someone remembers something. I took a breath. I think she might have saved my life once. His eyebrows rose. Tell me. So I did. The whole story. The scaffolding, the 30 seconds, the months of searching. The guilt and gratitude tangled together into something I couldn't separate. He listened without interrupting, his face very still. That sounds exactly like her, he said finally. The outreach workers said she did that sometimes. Warned people. They thought she was having delusions, seeing danger that wasn't there. But, he gestured at me, maybe not. Maybe she just paid attention better than the rest of us. How did she die? I asked. I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I needed to. Exposure, he said quietly. We had that cold snap last week, temperatures in the 20s. She was found in an underpass on Pike Street. She'd tried to make a shelter with cardboard, but it wasn't enough. The medical examiner said it was peaceful at least, like falling asleep. Peaceful. I wanted to scream. There was nothing peaceful about freezing to death alone under a bridge while the city slept in warm beds. Nothing peaceful about dying nameless. Nothing peaceful about a world where someone could save a stranger's life and then die because she didn't have a warm place to sleep. I want to pay for her burial, I said. The words came out urgent, desperate, whatever it costs. She should have a real grave, a headstone, something. The pastor's eyes filled with tears. That's very generous, he said. The city will provide a basic burial, but if you want to contribute something more permanent, yes, I said, whatever it takes. Margaret the librarian found me afterward. She pressed a slim book into my hands. Emily Dickinson's collected poems, she said. She would have liked that someone's reading them because of her, passing them on. I clutched the book like it was holy, like it was all I had left of a woman whose real name I'd never know. I sponsored her burial plot in a cemetery on the edge of the city. Made sure she got a headstone. Nothing fancy, just simple granite with words that felt true. Beloved child of God, she saw the world with careful eyes and saved strangers with kind words. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough. but it was something. A marker that said, someone saw you. Someone remembers. Your life mattered. Your 30 seconds changed everything. I started reading one Emily Dickinson poem each morning. The book lived on my nightstand, bookmark advancing page by page. The poems were strange and beautiful, full of dashes and capital letters in weird places, dense with meaning I didn't always understand, but felt anyway, like a frequency just below conscious hearing. But one kept coming back to me, kept rattling around in my head during meetings and commutes and quiet moments. If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. She'd stopped my heart from breaking. Or maybe she'd broken it open, cracked it like an egg so something new could grow inside. Either way, she hadn't lived in vain. She'd saved me, changed me, made me see. I quit my job in March. Not dramatically. No angry speeches or burned bridges. Just gave my 2 weeks' notice, trained my replacement, packed up my desk, took down the motivational posters, and the framed awards, and the photo of me shaking hands with the CEO, put them in a box that I'd probably never open again. My boss was baffled. "You're on track for director," she said, like I was insane to walk away. "Where are you going? Did you get a better offer?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Somewhere that matters." She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. And maybe I had. The language of meaning instead of money, purpose instead of prestige, connection instead of climbing. I ended up working for Mary's Place, the shelter where I'd been volunteering. Patricia hired me to coordinate outreach programs, connecting unhoused folks with services, housing, healthcare, employment, mental health support, all the things that should be basic human rights but somehow aren't. The pay was a fraction of what I'd made in tech. Less than a third, actually. My apartment was too expensive now, so I moved somewhere smaller. A studio in Greenwood, no floor-to-ceiling windows, no view of the bay. Just 4 walls and enough space for a bed and a desk and the life I was trying to build. Fewer windows, but somehow more light. Less space, but room to breathe. People asked if I was happy. Friends from my old life, co-workers, my mother during our weekly phone calls. I didn't know how to explain that happiness wasn't the point anymore. That I'd spent 28 years chasing happiness and ended up empty. That joy is different from happiness. Deeper, more sustainable, rooted in purpose instead of pleasure. Purpose was the point now. Connection was. Seeing people who'd been invisible to me and making sure they were seen by others. Making sure they had names and stories and futures. Making sure no one else died alone in an underpass and got labeled Jane Doe. I started a program called 30 Seconds. The idea was simple. Train volunteers to spend at least 30 seconds of real attention with every person they encountered on the street. Not fixing or saving or solving, just seeing, listening, acknowledging their existence and humanity. It's what she gave me, I told the volunteers at training sessions. 20 people would crowd into the shelter's community room, sitting in folding chairs, notebooks open. 30 seconds. That's all it took to save my life. Not money, not services, not a grand gesture, just attention, just recognition, just 7 words that told me someone saw me. I told them the whole story, the scaffolding, the woman, the months of searching, the funeral, how 30 seconds of attention from a stranger rewired my entire life, how I'd been walking around whole but fractured, successful but empty, how she'd seen something in me that I couldn't see in myself. We can all do what she did, I'd say. We can all stop for 30 seconds. We can all choose to see. It won't solve homelessness. It won't fix systemic poverty, but it'll remind people they're human, that they matter, that someone sees them. And sometimes, that's everything. The program grew, slowly at first, then faster. Other shelters adopted the model. Churches, community centers, schools, news outlets did stories. Local first, then regional, then a piece in the New York Times that made my phone explode with interview requests. I did them all, told the story over and over, hoping it would spread, hoping others would stop for 30 seconds, hoping her legacy would ripple out forever. Sometimes people asked if I thought she'd had some kind of psychic ability, if I believed in premonitions or supernatural intervention or guardian angels taking human form. Maybe, I'd say. Or maybe she just paid attention. Maybe she noticed things everyone else was too busy to see. Maybe she'd been watching the scaffolding, saw it was unstable, spent her morning warning people. Maybe it wasn't magic. Maybe it was just extreme awareness combined with extreme compassion. I preferred the second explanation. It meant anyone could do what she'd done. Save someone with just 30 seconds and the decision to speak up. It meant that kindness wasn't miraculous. It was available to everyone, anytime, if we just slow down enough to offer it. 3 years later, I was doing outreach in a different neighborhood, Georgetown, checking in with people I'd connected with services, when I saw her. Not the woman from that Tuesday, obviously. She was gone, buried under granite that said beloved, but her sister maybe, her cousin, her daughter, someone with the same careful eyes, the same thin jacket, the same cardboard sign. I stopped immediately, didn't even think about it. Stopping was automatic now, as natural as breathing. "Hi," I said, crouching down to be at eye level. "I'm Rachel. Can I sit with you for a minute?" She looked surprised, but nodded. Surprise was common. People weren't used to being asked permission, being treated like they had agency over their space and time. I sat down on the cold concrete beside her, not offering money or food yet, not performing help, just offering presence. "How long have you been out here?" I asked. 4 months, she said. Her voice was rough, like she didn't use it much. "Lost my apartment when I lost my job. It happens fast, you know? Faster than you'd think." "I believe that," I said, and I did. I'd learned how thin the line was, how quickly anyone could slip from stability to crisis with just one medical emergency, one layoff, one divorce, one bad break. How little separated the people in office buildings from the people on sidewalks except circumstances and luck, and a social safety net full of holes. "What's your name?" I asked. "Sarah," she said, and something in her face softened, like no one had asked her that in a long time. Like her name was something precious she'd been waiting to give away. We talked for 20 minutes. She told me about her daughter in Portland, how she was too ashamed to call her, about the back injury that made it hard to stand for long shifts, how chronic pain had cost her the restaurant job she'd held for 6 years, about the shelter that was full last night, so she'd slept in a doorway and woken up with her shoes gone. Someone had stolen them while she slept. "Would you let me help?" I asked. "I work for an outreach program. We might be able to find you a bed, connect you with some services, medical care for your back, maybe job placement when you're ready." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do that?" "Because someone did it for me once," I said. "In a way. Someone saw me when I couldn't see myself. Someone gave me 30 seconds that changed my entire life, and now I'm trying to pass it on." I got her connected that day. Shelter bed first, then transitional housing, physical therapy for her back, case management, job training, all the puzzle pieces that add up to stability that most people get automatically and some people have to fight for. 6 months later, she sent me a text, called my daughter. She cried. I cried. "Thank you. We're meeting for coffee next week." I kept that text, printed it out and pinned it to my office wall, right next to a photo of the headstone that said, "Beloved Child of God," right next to quotes from Emily Dickinson and notes from other people we'd helped and drawings kids had made, thanking us for helping their parents. People asked me sometimes if I thought she knew what she was doing that Tuesday, if she understood that her 30 seconds would spiral out like this, touching hundreds of lives through mine, if she could have imagined that a program would start, that people would train, that her 7 words would echo across cities and years. I didn't think so. I thought she just saw someone rushing past and felt moved to speak, saw danger, whether literal scaffolding or metaphorical emptiness, and warned a stranger. Did it because that's what you do when you're human and paying attention, when you've lost everything, except the ability to care about others, when you understand that we're all connected, all vulnerable, all deserving of those 30 seconds. Maybe that was her gift, not seeing the future, but seeing the present with perfect clarity, seeing me rushing past, phone in hand, wrapped in expensive fabric and cheaper priorities, seeing that I was heading toward disaster, whether it was the scaffolding that morning or the slow disaster of a life spent achieving everything and experiencing nothing. She'd seen me, really seen me, in a way no one else had. Not my boss, my coworkers, my friends, my mother. They'd all seen the surface, the success, the promotion track, The LinkedIn profile. She'd seen deeper, seen the fracture, seen someone who needed saving. And she'd saved me, with 7 words, 30 seconds. The bare minimum of human connection that most of us deny each other every single day. I'm different now, obviously. Not better, necessarily, but more awake, more present, more human maybe. I noticed the people I used to step over, step around, step past on my way to somewhere more important. I carry granola bars and hand warmers. I look people in the eyes and ask their names. I spend 30 seconds, minimum, with anyone who needs it. But the deeper change is harder to explain. It's like someone took the careful walls I'd built around my heart, the walls that kept me safe and separate and successful, and knocked them down with a single sentence. The world needs you whole, not successful, not impressive, not productive or profitable or optimized. Whole, present, connected, human, vulnerable enough to be broken and brave enough to stay open anyway. I think about her constantly. Wonder what her real name was. Not Jane Doe, but the name her mother whispered when she was born. Wonder where she came from, what her life was like before the streets. Wonder what brought her to that sidewalk on that Tuesday. Wonder if she saved other people too, or if I was the only one lucky enough to stop for 30 seconds. Most of all, I wonder what she saw when she looked at me that Tuesday morning. Did she see the promotion I was chasing? The apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows? The carefully curated life I thought made me matter? Or did she see deeper, past the expensive coat and the clicking heels to the person inside, who was rushing everywhere and arriving nowhere, who measured worth in LinkedIn connections and forgot that humans are more than their productivity, who had everything except the ability to see what was right in front of her, who was whole in the world's eyes but fractured in ways she couldn't name? I hope she saw someone worth saving, someone who could change, someone who 30 seconds of attention might crack open just enough to let the light in. Someone who could take those 7 words and build a life around them, a program around them, a way of being in the world that honored what she'd given. I'll never know for sure, but I've built my life around the hope that she was right, that the world does need us whole, that 30 seconds of genuine attention is worth more than a lifetime of impressive achievements, that the people we dismiss might be the ones who save us, if we just stop long enough to listen. I visit her grave every month. Bring flowers, usually daisies or tulips, something simple and cheerful. Sit on the grass, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. Read Emily Dickinson poems out loud, my voice carrying across the cemetery. Tell her about the people we've helped through 30 seconds. About Sarah, who reconnected with her daughter and now works at a call center and has her own apartment. About Marcus, the veteran who got housing and treatment for PTSD and volunteers at the shelter now. About Jessica, the teenager who aged out of foster care and ended up on the streets but found us and got into community college. You started this, I tell her. Tell the granite and the grass and whatever remains of the spirit that inhabited that careful, watching woman. All of it, with 30 seconds and 7 words, with the decision to speak up when everyone else walked past, with the ability to see danger and care enough to warn a stranger who treated you like you were invisible. The grass doesn't answer, obviously. The stone stays silent, but sometimes the wind moves through the trees, rustling leaves and carrying bird songs, and it sounds almost like a whisper, like someone saying, I see you. You matter. Keep going. So I do. Every day. 30 seconds at a time. Building a life that honors her gift. Building a world where people stop and look and see each other. Where no one dies nameless in an underpass. Where kindness isn't rare or miraculous but common and available and offered freely. It's not perfect. I still fail constantly. Still walk past people sometimes when I'm tired or rushed or overwhelmed. Still measure myself against old metrics. The salary I'm not making. The career I'm not building. The life I gave up. Still wonder if I'm doing enough. Helping enough. Being enough. But then I remember her eyes. Those careful, watching eyes that saw me completely in 30 seconds. That recognized something worth saving in a stranger who couldn't see her own worth. That offered 7 words without expecting anything in return. And I keep going. If this story touched you, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to remember there's kindness in the world. Real kindness. The kind that asks for nothing. The kind that saves strangers with 7 words. The kind that changes everything. Subscribe to this channel because some stories deserve to be heard. Some lessons need to be passed on. Some moments are so powerful they ripple out forever, touching lives across years and cities, reminding us what it means to be human. The world needs you whole, all of us, seen and seeing, connected and present, human, vulnerable enough to be broken by suffering and brave enough to stay open to joy, fractured by loss and held together by love, rushing through life and stopping for 30 seconds when someone needs to be seen. That's what she taught me. That's what I'm trying to live. That's what I hope I'm passing on. 30 seconds. That's all it took to save my life, to crack open my heart, to show me what matters. How will you use yours? Who will you see today? Really see. The way she saw me. Not glance at, or process, or categorize, but see, recognize, acknowledge. Offer those 30 seconds that might mean nothing or might mean everything. Start now. Put down your phone. Look around. See someone. Really see them. The world needs you whole. And the world needs you to help others become whole too. 30 seconds at a time.